going to start making videos where I'm going to directly address questions that I've gotten from various students, whether through YouTube or through my website or by email. Basically specific questions that they might have on any issue having to do with the SAT, or really any issue in general having to do with school SAT stuff, mostly focusing on the SAT. So this will be pretty much a Q&A series that I'm going to put out once in a while when I get questions that I can answer in video form. So if you have any questions about anything related to the SAT or even SAT2s or anything, but particularly the SAT, just let me know either through YouTube or through the website or by emailing me, however you'd like. And if you like, I'll make a video and hopefully that'll help. So in this first video, I'm responding to a question that someone had about critical reading questions. And this individual said that they're having a lot of trouble with the reading passage questions and would like some help as to how to do better on them. So what I'm going to do here is I asked the student to do a practice section and send me the answers. And I'm going to work through 4 of the questions that the student missed here. And basically go through the answers. I think it was basically go through the answers, why I think the person might have put that choice down. I don't really know why the student picked the choices they did, but I'm going to kind of try to guess and figure it out. Why they might have put that choice, why it's not correct, and why the right answer to these questions are the answers that they are. So this comes from the 2012-2013 SAT. You can download this SAT on my website under the practice section, and this is section 3. And I'm just looking at these 4 questions here because I think it's going to illustrate the point enough. So let's look at this first question. The primary purpose of passage 1 is to. So then the student put B. So let's go through and read passage 1. And while we're reading, we want to figure out what is the primary purpose of it. What is the main thing it's trying to do? I know what your email inbox looks like, and it isn't pretty. A babble of come-ons and lies from hucksters and con artists. To find your real email, you must wade through the torrent of fraud and obscenity known politely as unsolicited bulk email, and colloquially as spam. In a perverse tribute to the power of the online revolution, we are all suddenly getting the same mail, easy weight loss, get-rich-quick schemes, etc. The crush of these messages is now numbered in billions per day. It's becoming a major systems and engineering and network problem, says one email expert. Spammers are gaining control of the internet. So, in our own word, what's going on here? Well, it seems like they're introducing this idea of spam, right? I know what your email inbox looks like. To wade through email, you got to go through all the fraud and spam, and we're all getting crushed with all this kind of email. It's billions per day, and this expert says it's a big problem. Okay, so that's what's going on. Let's go to the choices. Now, the student put B, dispute a hypothesis. So first off, a hypothesis is like a theory or an attempted explanation of some kind of data. So the question is, what is the hypothesis here? In the first place, that would be disputed. It's not at all clear what the hypothesis would be. It seems to be just introducing this concept of spam. There's no actual theory here, right? They're not trying to explain, for instance, where spam comes from, really. They're not trying to explain why it's so common. They're not trying to explain anything. They're just describing an incident. They're describing what spam is. And secondly, they're not really disputing anything. Again, there's no dispute. They're not trying to prove anything incorrect or prove anything wrong. They're just saying, this is spam. I know you know what spam is. This is the problem it is. It's just bringing up an issue, right? So that's why B is not going to work here. Where maybe you got that, I'm not quite sure why you put B. Again, I'm not sure why you may have put one choice over another, maybe if you were guessing or what, but there's really just no evidence from this paragraph that it's anything to do with hypothesis. And if you don't know what the word hypothesis means, that makes it hard, right? That's one of the words that's in the vocab list because it is one of those words that's really important. Let's look at the other choices. Make a comparison. Well, again, what are we comparing? There's nothing being compared here, so we can get rid of A. How about C? Settle a controversy. Well, again, there's no sure, you might think spam is controversial, but there's nothing in this paragraph that says it's controversial, nor is the paragraph trying to settle any kind of controversy. Justify a distinction. Well, what distinction is being made here? None, right? There's no distinction between two different things. It's not trying to highlight some difference, and nor is anything trying to be justified, so we can get rid of D. Highlight a concern. Yeah, highlighting a concern means bringing up an issue of importance, and that is what this passage is about. It's saying, here's this thing called spam. It's becoming a huge problem. Yeah, that's it, right? So it's just highlighting that concern about what spam is. So the answer here is E for that reason. 7, the primary purpose of passage 2 is to. So same kind of question. Now we're dealing with passage 2. So let's go ahead and read that and figure out what the purpose of it is. Many people who hate spam assume that it is protected as free speech. Not necessarily so. The United States Supreme Court has previously ruled that individuals may preserve a threshold of privacy. Nothing in the Constitution compels us to listen to or view any unwanted communication, whatever its merit, wrote Chief Justice Warren Burger in a 1970 decision. We therefore categorically reject the argument that a vendor has a right to send unwanted material into the home of another. With regard to a seemingly similar problem, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act of 1991 made it illegal in the United States to send unsolicited faxes. Why not extend the act to include unsolicited bulk email? All right, so what's going on in this paragraph? Well, we're talking about, people who hate spam may think it's free speech, but actually the Supreme Court has ruled that you don't have to listen to something. You shouldn't be forced to listen to speech. That would not be a violation of free speech rights. And with regard to a similar problem, which was unsolicited faxes, could that law not just as well easily be extended to include unsolicited bulk email, right? So this could be a way to stop the problem. So let's go to the choices, see what best fits. So you put C, defend a controversial technology. So my thought as to why maybe you put C is maybe you read this as this paragraph defending spam. But there's no real mention here that it's defending spam in any way. Notice it begins by saying many people who hate spam assume that it is protected as free speech. Not necessarily so. This is not at all defending spam. It's just saying people out there who hate spam, you may think it's free speech, so it's hard to get around, but actually, no, it's not. And then the rest of the paragraph goes to describe why that's the case, why the Supreme Court would disagree with that. Then later, it says, with regard to a seemingly similar problem, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act made it illegal to send unsolicited faxes. Why not extend the act to include unsolicited bulk email? So here the passage is offering an idea. How can you stop spam? Well, we stopped unsolicited faxes in one way. Maybe you could stop spam in another way. So this is not at all defending spam. It's saying here's a way to stop it. So in fact, the opposite. It's actually against spam, just like passage 1. So for that reason, C is not going to work. Let's look at the other choices. A, confirm a widely held belief. What belief is it confirming? In fact, it's doing the opposite. It is undermining or contradicting a belief that people have about spam as free speech. So that's not going to be it. Discuss the inadequacies of a ruling. Not really. I mean, certainly you might interpret this as saying it somehow fell short of something, but that would be a misread. They're not at all discussing the inadequacies of a ruling. They're showing actually how it applies in this case. So we can get rid of B. D, analyze a widespread social problem. So certainly that would be maybe closer to passage 1. Passage 2 is talking about a different issue, so not at all analyzing any kind of widespread social problem. E, lay the foundation for a course of action. Yeah, so this discussion of first, number 1, spam not being protected as free speech, and second, being able to extend a certain law to apply to spam as well, those are some ideas that you could use to solve the problem of spam, right? The foundation for course of action. So that is why E works. 8. What would be the most likely reaction by the author of passage 1 to the argument in 16 to 21? So first things first, we need to figure out what this argument it is in 16 to 21. Nothing in the Constitution compels us to listen to or view any unwanted communication, whatever its merit. We therefore categorically reject the argument that a vendor has a right to send unwanted material into the home of another. So that's the argument, right? There's nothing in the Constitution that requires, in order to protect free speech, requires us to listen to anything that's told to us. We have a vendor does not have a right to send unwanted material into the home of another, right? So you cannot be forced to listen to something or receive a particular kind of communication just because free speech is allegedly protected. That's the argument. So the question is, how would passage 1 respond to that? It's a bit unclear exactly. I mean, presumably passage 1 would like this because it maybe would be a way to defend us against spam, but it's not exactly clear what passage 1 would say. We know certainly they probably would be positive about it. So you put B, dismay at the Supreme Court's rigorous defense of vendors' rights. Again, I think kind of like with number 7, you read this paragraph as defending spam, and that's not at all what's happening. In fact, the Supreme Court decision would reject this idea that spam would be legal in some ways. So actually, the Supreme Court is not defending spam whatsoever. They are actually, notice here, they're rejecting an argument made by a vendor. So they're certainly not defending the vendor's rights. So it's not going to be B. How about A? Surprised at the assumption that freedom of speech is indispensable to democracy. So certainly this is true, right? Free speech is indispensable to democracy. But is that mentioned in passage 1 or passage 2? And is that something that, would passage 1 be surprised by it? Not really. That's just not mentioned at all. C, hope that the same reasoning would be applied to all unsolicited email. Yeah, so passage 1 would hope that this decision, this argument, could be applied to spam to stop it. So that looks good. Concern for the plight of mass marketers facing substantial economic losses. Where would passage 1 at all be worried about mass marketers, about spammers? They would be not worried about them whatsoever. Get rid of D. E, appreciation for the political complexity of the debate about spam. They might be, but there's nothing here telling us specifically that they would be. In fact, it seems not very complex at all. The issue seems pretty cut and dry in this argument. So whether there's complexity here in the first place, whether passage 1 primarily would be appreciative of that complexity is not clear. It's not mentioned. It's got to be specifically supported by the text. And the only one that is choice C, because this first paragraph is about how spam is awful, and passage 2, this argument gives a way to get rid of that spam. Therefore, passage 1, in theory, would at least respond to that positively, which is what we said at the beginning. Last question. Unlike the author of passage 1, the author of passage 2, wow. So this is one of those questions where you have to find something that's in 2 but not in 1. So you put A, criticizes a practice. Well, what first is passage 2 criticizing? Which practice is passage 2 criticizing? And it doesn't seem to be explicitly a particular practice. Maybe you could say they're criticizing spam, I guess, but they're not really criticizing it. They're bringing up laws that may undermine the practice, may actually make the practice illegal, but they're not criticizing in itself. Maybe that 1 would be maybe criticizing a bit more. But even still, 1, I mean, yeah, it isn't not supposed to, but even still, 1 is not clear at all whether it would be criticizing. I guess it is criticizing. So in the end, it almost seems that 1 criticizes the practice more than 2 does. And we're looking for the opposite. We're looking for a practice that's criticized by 2 and not by 1. So we can get rid of A. How about B? Offers an example. So passage 2, does it offer an example? Well, let's see. I guess it gives an example of a Supreme Court ruling and of a law, so maybe. So 2 might do that. Does 1 offer an example? Let's see. It seems that they offer an example of kind of emails, kind of spam emails. So that would be an example. It's kind of general here. It's not specific enough. I mean, we'll put a squiggly next to it. If we don't find a better answer, we'll pick B, but it's not a great answer because it's not offering specific examples of whatever it is that this would be talking about. I guess spam. Proposes a solution. Well, does 2 propose a solution? Yeah, it does, right? In the end. Why not extend this act to include unsolicited bulk email? So there's your proposed solution. And notice that is directly stated in the passage. We didn't have to fluff that up. Whereas passage 1 does not offer any kind of solution. It just raises the issue, highlights the concern. It doesn't actually bring an issue. So C looks really good. D, states an opinion. Both state an opinion. Well, actually 2 doesn't state an opinion, I don't think. Maybe the last part would be an opinion, but 1 definitely states an opinion. So both do it, so both do it, so not good. Quotes an expert, they both do. Notice here is a quoted expert here, and then the Supreme Court Justice in theory would be an expert as well. So at the very least, it's 1, not 2. We need a choice that is 2, not 1, which is going to be choice C, proposes a solution, because passage 2 right here proposes a solution for spam, whereas 1 basically just brings up the idea, doesn't propose a solution in itself. So those are the 4 questions. I hope it helped explain the thought process and why these choices won't work and why the right ones are correct. If you have any other questions, let me know. For those interested in more of this breakdown of the passages, I go through 4 practice SATs, including 20 passages, 20 different short, long, dual, fiction passages in the Critical Reading Bootcamp, in depth, question by question, very similar to what I did in this. So go ahead and check that out if you're curious. I'll put a link below. Anyway, if you have any other questions for anybody, so if you have other things I might want to make a video about, send me an email, message, whatever, and I'll try to help you out best I can. All right, talk to you later.